Hello, friends. Today we're going to be making an art piece based off of the autistic experience. I'm going to be basing this art piece off of information that my son, who has autism, has told me about and what I've seen as a parent of someone with autism. So grab your art supplies and let's get started. So we're going to start by using very bright colors. So I'm going to be grabbing, this is called quinacridone magenta. And I'm going to be using vibrant colors throughout this art piece to really describe the sensory experience of how everything is experienced very intensely. It can be wonderful when you're talking about creative thinking, how you can see things and experience things and notice things that maybe other people don't. But it can be hard when you're in certain environments and it feels overwhelming. There's too much sound, too much light, too much talking, too many demands, all of those things. So there's a lot of sensory things going on. I'm going to grab French ultramarine here next, get it nice and vibrant. And I'm going to be mixing it in here because all of those experiences together, not each one individually, doesn't seem for him to be that big of a thing. Maybe it is for you. But when all of them are happening, there's so much, it can be even more overwhelming. And that's when we go into a place of feeling like shutting down or just being too tired or not be able to handle or take more. So we're going to start with the sensory experience, and then I'm going to move on. You can wait for this to dry, but I'm just going to continue on and not touch through it. And I'm going to grab a colored pencil. I'm just going to grab some green. And I'm going to be making some repetitive shapes that I'm coloring in. You can make any shape, or honestly, you could be making anything you want to make. But the visual that we're going for here is the desire for repetition, for sameness, for order. It can be very challenging for him and a lot of autistic people when plans change unexpectedly or a request suddenly changes. The order of things is very important. And along with that goes justice, right? That things must be just, it must be right. If the rules are this way, if this is what the rules are, it's believed that this is a good rule. This is a good and right rule. And it is not followed. It can be very upsetting that someone wouldn't choose to do that. So we're going to go with some repetitive shapes. And for me, it's the repetitive shapes in an odd number. If what's comfortable for you, if making that uneven like that is uncomfortable for you, then make a 3 or 3, 5 or 5, or whatever feels like on the paper feels like a comfortable experience for you. And while this bit right here is a little bit wet, I'm gonna add in some salt. And what that's gonna do is the salt's gonna absorb the liquid. I'm gonna go on this other side over here. And as it absorbs the liquid, it's gonna leave some like white spots in there. And it's gonna add a little bit of the watercolor and salt texture. Textures are also a big thing, very, very important. A lot of people with autism have a hard time with either they have a hard time with textures on their body that don't feel right, or they have a need for sensory feedback that can be really helpful in calming any time that might be overwhelming. So I'm going to let that go and do its thing. I'm going to kind of push that in. Okay, and then I'm going to add in some speech bubble details with my yellowy orange colored pencil here. So communication is another place that people on the spectrum have differences. So one of those things is some people on the spectrum are very direct. So like small talk and little conversations that we have sometimes feel a little, that are very surface, aren't things that a lot of people on the spectrum are super skilled at. in the great part, it means that you have more in-depth conversation. They're very much more direct, so you're going to know what you're going to get. And I really have to appreciate that quite a lot. And there's literal interpretations of language. So a lot of sarcasm or idioms. Sometimes some of those are a little bit lost. They really like things to be a little bit more literal, at least my autistic son does. And they have what's called monotopic conversations. They get very into something, maybe they're into, or you're into Minecraft or computer systems or whatever that may be for you or for that person. And they really enjoyed mostly talking about that subject. It's having a hard time talking about things that they are not really interested in. And so it's really important when we're talking with that person, we're understanding that that's kind of the way that their brain works. The benefit of that is their passion and their knowledge can lead to some really highly informative and engaging conversations. You can learn a lot about something that you may not have known before, which is amazing. Some people also have some speech pattern things or repetitive language things, or may not speak at all. They may be nonverbal. So, those are also some added things that are different in communication. In this upper part up here, I'm going to be putting in a big circle and I'm going to have it just around this watercolor. And it's going to show a little bit of social construct. And I want you to imagine all of this color and everything else is the autistic person and their brain. And what society kind of has an expectation for is this black bubble. And I'm going to be putting lines in it to kind of just show a little bit more of that formality. And they have it's usually a little bit outside of that. And so some of those things are um, social context clues. So when people are having, let's say there's a room full of people and their faces look kind of like upset, um, and a person on the spectrum may come in the room and be unaware that everyone else is not in a good mood, that they're upset. So they may have a harder time reading facial expressions and body language or noticing some of the social norms that are happening within a room. And they're focusing more on the words spoken, what someone is saying. So, again, I'm talking about just my experience with my son and some of his challenges. There are varying levels of that. Some people don't have any problem with that at all, and some people do. Now, that doesn't always mean it's a bad thing. It doesn't mean that they don't understand people at all. Sometimes people say, oh, if they're on the spectrum, they don't have feelings, they don't have empathy. And that is so wrong. I can tell you for a fact, I know several people on the spectrum, actually, a lot of people on the spectrum, and they're very empathetic, very kind, very loving. They do care a lot. They may not just read the social cues that someone isn't okay in that moment. And when they know, um, there's so much kindness there, so much love and compassion there. So I think that that's good to know. There's also some like time delay things. It takes time for all of us to think of a thoughtful, well reasoned response quickly. And sometimes that's even more delayed, whether they know what to say in that particular moment. What might come out might not be what we would want and or expect to hear in that moment. But if you're patient, you can hear that well reasoned, thoughtful communication. There's also some sensory processing things with like the noise and the sound and everything else that you can see in through here. And that also adds into that understanding what's happening within a room. So I hope that by engaging in through this art project, whether you're just watching me make it or making it yourself, whether you're someone on the spectrum or you know someone on the spectrum or you want to understand someone better on the spectrum, I hope that by doing this art project, it's helped you to understand a little bit more about yourself and others.